Hey y'all, it is your host Patricia. I want to welcome you to today's episode of Dialogue. Really excited about today's content because it actually comes at the close of a season for me, which means that I have fresh revelation for you in order for it to bless you, apply it to your life, and use it or share it with someone else in hopes that it will bless them as well. As you know, our mantra on this show is that we are healing souls one conversation at a time. So as I give the information to you, if you are available, you share it with someone else. You guys have a dialogue, you converse about it for the sake of it being beneficial to another person. I don't know about you, but it has been many of times I've been in a certain location and someone's walked up to me and we've been talking and I was able to say, I heard that today, or I saw a post about that today, or I read that today. And it was actually something not only that I needed, but they needed as well. So that is my hope for this podcast, that you're sharing the content with someone, okay? Thank you for all the followers and subscribers. So I don't want to belabor the point. Let's get straight into it. Today we are talking about the controversy of relationships. These relationships don't have to be platonic. They can be platonic, but they don't have to be intimate relationships that you're having with a man or a woman, okay? This can be relationships with your friendships, coworkers, or anybody. And I'm going to go from the perspective of being a believer, because I noticed that I have a lot of issues in my relationships. I don't know if any of you ever look on my social media, but I am never just randomly posting people on my social media. I do attend events with people. I do go places with people, but I just don't always post people on my social media. And I'm going to tell you why. I find that as a believer, sometimes maintaining connections with people can be very difficult. Simply being because when God has a call on your life, when God has a purpose and or assignment for your life, He is very particular about the people that He will allow to enter your life and remain in your circle. It is even so much to the point that oftentimes many people in that aspect of relationships have had to walk away from their family simply because it does not aid or assist who they are becoming. See, God is very intentional. Not only is He intentional in our capacity for our purpose, meaning your assignment, your mission, your goals and objectives, God is also intentional in your relationships with people. And so I have always come to understand that if this person does not, or if this person is not needed for this season in my life, God will very swiftly and quickly remove that person. And I've had to come to the place as not only just a mature woman, but also a mature person in Christ to understand that oftentimes you do have to let people go swiftly and quickly. It is not always that the person is a bad person. It is not always that something crazy or happened, such as drama, chaos, gossip, debates, or anything like that. It depends on if God sees a purpose for that person in the next season of your life. See, I'm in my mid-30s and I am very happy that I am not married as of yet, because I remember that when I was in my early 20s, that was my dream, my aspiration, my goal was to be married and have a family for the purpose of what I presume to be inner fulfillment. I mean, who doesn't want a family? Isn't that part of the American dream? But as time went on, I would grow and I would change and I would transform and I would evolve, so much to the point that it would push me out of a lot of my friendships, out of a lot of my relationships. And a lot of times my seasons are so consecrated, meaning that I am literally going through by myself with God, and He will allow witnesses or people. We can call them spectators. Some people will call them haters. I don't really classify them like that. I just look at it as people that need inspiration. He will allow them to pull a chair up to the table to witness His goodness in my life during that season of whatever challenge that I am enduring, or of whatever situation that I am going through. He will allow them to see His strength, His wisdom through me. Because trust and believe, how many of you have come to know and understand that this world, life is lifing, and sometimes it gets so hard and so difficult. If it wasn't for the strength of God, trust me, I would not be here. If it wasn't for the ways and wisdom of God, I would not be here. And so when you take a moment and you think about relationships, that is the first foundation that God ever gave outside of himself, the relationship that we were to have with him. He gave relationship, and it was intimate relationship. It was relationship between man and woman, Adam and Eve, because it wasn't good for Adam to be by himself. And so God gave him Eve, okay? But immediately you see the controversy in the situation, in the relationship, when the enemy comes and tries to create division between Eve and her relationship with God by telling her to do something that she wasn't supposed to do. And then she took that information back to her husband, to her house, and it destroyed her home. And so I am really starting to understand that the enemy, he does two things. He can use that person that we think is our friend, but the enemy can also come in between relationships that we so desperately need for our destiny, for our identity, for our mission, and for our purpose. And that's more of the angle that I want to focus on today. The controversy between relationships that are supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, I always hear people to say you're blessed if you have one friend in a lifetime. I'm talking about a real friend, 20, 30, 40 years down the line. Okay? But your relationships with people, when they become intimate as far as man and woman, they actually do start off as friendships. And I don't know how the enemy knows it, okay? Because sometimes we don't even know who we have the potential to become, but God does. He will start out of the gate just bringing confusion and destruction and counterfeits and all types of things to destroy a relationship that God really wants to salvage, that God really wants to save, that God really needs for his kingdom. And so I always say, this is not for those that are immature, that want to be right in a situation that you're expecting or hoping God to work out. This is for people that want to understand the controversy in relationships is oftentimes not even as a result of the two people. See, the enemy, he looks and he studies and he waits and he watches. I mean, the word says the enemy, he waits to see who he can devour. You know, he's like a lion seeking whom he can devour. So even if he goes away for one season because you overcame, trust and believe he's going to try to come back, because he's like, okay, this is a time where maybe she has an anniversary and somebody passed away, and maybe I can get her on technicality that she's upset or that she's sad that something bad happened in her life at this specific time. But nevertheless, you have these relationships that are meant to be. And I honestly do believe that I've had friendships like that. I also believe that I've had intimate relationships in that capacity. And I just can see the enemy trying to wreak havoc on the relationships, whether it's through offense, whether it's through unforgiveness, whether it's through pettiness or drama or confusion, or whatever it is that he tries to put up his sleeve to pop out at the most inopportune times. I remember a post I read a long time ago, and this man, he said, why is it that people that are meant to be together always have the hardest time staying together? Like they bypass each other. And I firmly believe that in a world where people want to be connected and where people want to be loved and people want to share space with someone, I believe that the enemy works double time on people, trying not to get them what God is ultimately for: love. You will see one person, they'll be dating somebody, then they'll be off to the next person, but they're always talking about the old person. That's who they're really supposed to be with. And I don't even get into a lot of content like this or a lot of information about this. This is how I know this definitely has to be the Holy Spirit. This is how I know that this definitely must be God. Because the controversy of relationships, this is all that I see. Gossip and drama only can come when it's dealing with the importance of people connecting and getting together, or merging together, or coming together. And so people are mad at people. But one thing that I notice is that when I'm talking to just my personal friends, and even when I'm actually talking and counseling people, you don't hear people say, the devil is responsible for this. All this that we're going through, let's just pause and take a moment. The devil is doing this. People don't say that. They will hurl all their insults and all their anger at each other. And that's all the enemy has to do, come in with a situation that offends somebody or hurts somebody's feelings. And the offense, which creates the fence, a barrier to their heart that will keep people arguing and upset and at odds with each other for years on end. That's all the enemy has to do, is create one scenario where this person may say, I hate when people do this. And the thing that they hate is the thing that the other person will do. And because they're not able to have discernment, they will keep going and going and going with it. And before you know it, those people haven't talked in years. They haven't seen each other in years. Kids haven't seen each other in years because of offense. See, when you set your eyes and heart on having a relationship with someone, not only do we have to fight for our relationship with Christ. I mean, it's already there once you're saved, but maintaining it. Have you ever seen how hard it is to maintain your walk with Christ? You got all types of temptation that's trying to take you away from God. You got all types of idols that are trying to take you away from God. You have your own thoughts trying to lead you astray and take you away from God. It is a work to continuously get things and problems and issues, emotions and mindsets out of us, cleared out of us, so that we can stay connected to God. And He's all supreme, almighty. Who wouldn't want to stay connected to Him? The man that created you, put breath in your body, that wakes you up in the morning. Who wouldn't want to stay connected to Him? That would be insane not to want to be connected to Him. Can you imagine how hard it is to stay connected to somebody that you're supposed to? See, because God always thinks the same things about you. He loves you with an everlasting love. He's comforting, but He's also chastisement when you're wrong, which is correction out of love. Can you imagine dealing with another human being when they get upset and they're passive aggressive because you've said or done something out of your own subconscious that you didn't understand hurt them, and now they're on a tangent to destroy your lives because they're upset? And the enemy just keeps fueling with emotions and the mental state. And I always say the worst type of people to deal with are people that are passive aggressive, because they'll sit there and smile in your face and you will never even know that they're as mad as what they are. The controversy of relationships. This is why when it talks about like getting married and things like that, you have to really be careful, because you have to pick somebody that you can do life with. When you don't want to be bothered on some days and you don't want to look at this person. I know for me, at this point in my life, I'm a mother, and I'm also single at the current moment. However, I like my space and I like to do what I like to do. And I honestly think that's why I don't keep a lot of people around or a lot of friends. Because when your life is so engrafted in God, He just tells you to do all types of stuff. And sometimes it may lead you close to people for a season, but then ultimately when you elevate, it leads you away. And so we as people can get so comfortable with God. It's just like someone else to come in can take a lot of space and mental strength and emotional vulnerability and so many other things that you have to do to keep this relationship rolling on four wheels without a flat tire. And so I say this to say, We have to be mindful of who we're mad at and why we're mad. Most people, if they really understood that the person that they actually really need in their life is the person they're going to have to do the strongest battle for, I think it would keep us humble to understand that sometimes we're not fighting for the relationship as much as what we think. We're fighting for the soul to be lined up with God so that the relationship can blossom into what God will have it to be. And so relationships have a lot of different complex areas, but they're only as difficult as the difficulty within a person. If you're trying to merge with someone or relate to someone that doesn't have peace and you do, it's going to be very chaotic, and ultimately they'll bring that chaos into your life. If you're trying to merge with someone that's not led by God and you are, it's those opposites, the non-negotiable opposites. I'm not talking about if they have $2 million in their bank account, because that can easily be gone. I'm talking about the controversy of people not being forgiving, people not having character, people not wanting accountability, people not wanting to walk out of love and forgiveness, patience and long suffering. I highly believe that when God gave us the fruit of the Spirit, it wasn't just for situations, it was definitely for people. And before this last season, before God dealt with me and showed me, I kid you not, people, I'm like, I can just get rid of them. You call this phone, we don't know you. It was so easy. It was so easy because it was something I'm so used to. But I believe that in the new season of life, God will challenge you, because people were only able to see God through that way they see God in you sometimes. Sometimes you are that person's miracle. You are that person's ability to see things clearly, ability to have wisdom to make the right decision. It can come through your connection, their connection with you. It is so many reasons why the enemy fights relationships, and it's quite exhausting. But then when you sit and think about it, the more that he fights the situation, that's how you know that not only are they worth it, God says you're worth it, but he also loves that person and he loves you too. And so ultimately what we have to do as people, we have to keep our eyes on the prize, which is the person, the prized soul, the possession of Christ. And we have to stay mindful that the enemy never wants us to connect with people who are going to help us change and transform and help us with our destiny and help us to become a better version of ourselves, maximize our full potential, think with new perspective. The enemy does not want that. And oftentimes, by the time he has wreaked all the havoc that he can, God so gently comes in and changes the situation to show his perspective and what he originally wanted. He kicks the enemy out of the situation and brings restoration. And ultimately, the controversy of the relationship ultimately was just a crucifix. It was a cross. It was a cross to leading people to die to their flesh, to bring them to a lowly, humble place of wanting to understand people. Because ultimately, if you do want to relate to somebody, you have to be understanding, compassionate, and loving. I mean, really relate. I'm not talking about a toxic, abusive relationship. I'm talking about really relating. And that will require humility and lots of prayer and keeping God in the middle. Because trust and believe, if God is not in the middle, the only other person that is in the middle is the devil. And there's nothing good that's going to come from that. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode of The Dialogue. I love sharing content. I love when the Holy Spirit just drops something on your heart or spirit to say, and then he comes in and takes over the conversation. He just uses you as a vessel. It's just the most beautiful thing, because he wraps it up with a bow and presents it as wisdom and knowledge, and it's so beautiful. So thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of The Dialogue. As you know, our mantra is that we're healing souls one conversation at a time. Don't forget that you're loved by Christ and saved by Christ. There's no reason to be in this world without him. You definitely want to give your life over to the Lord. He will do miraculous, wonderful things, make you a witness, make you an example of empowerment to help lead someone else down this rusty, dusty road called life at different seasons. Okay. But I appreciate you listening. Share this content with someone else, and we'll be back with more content at a later date. Bye, everybody.